So anyway, welcome to Council Table today. The the theme that the Lord gave me back in October when I pray for my personal theme for the year that's coming up, 2025. When I say October, that's in September. That's the Hebrew time period for Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year according to the Hebrew calendar. And so I prayed over my theme for the year that the Lord wants me to focus on personally, but I found over the last number of years, say 5 to 8 years, that it seems to be applicable to a number of other people. So I'm beginning to share it more. And this year again, I said, Lord, you've given me a personal thing. Is this for the council table? And I really do believe it is. And it's in the area what he just termed one word, victory. So a question that kind of leads me into that. What has God put on your heart as a desire, as a purpose, as a destiny? It could be a big picture thing like I'm to, be president of the United States. We've had one person on the council table that has told me quietly that that's one of his goals in the future. Um, how would you define that victory when you get there? I guess when you walk into the White House. And for you personally, it could be a small thing like, hey, I just want to, I would like to see our marriage move to this, or I'd like to see get another level up in my business, whatever that is. Tell me something that's on your heart today that you'd say that's a, a goal, a purpose, a desire that's on your heart. Um, that when you get to that point, you'd say, I've got victory, breakthrough. I love it when Kate's picture shows up because she's always smiling. Like, I understand exactly what you said. Thank you, Kate.
That's why I leave the picture there. The picture's always smiling, but I'm a little
That's
grumpy
right.
today.
Just keep talking,
Um,
Bill. They'll get it. Keep going.
no, I love the question. I was thinking I have something I want to focus on for the year, but I don't really know what victory looks like. Um, the Lord told me in 2024 that my health and my body cannot support what He's inviting me into, and that He that it wouldn't be loving of Him to let me go forward if my body's in the condition it's in. So I'm having some different health challenges that I'm working through, but then also just like normal, or maybe it's not normal, I don't know, lack of fitness, being lazy with what I eat. I spend a lot of time in front of the computer, that kind of thing. And so my focus for 2025 is to be intentional about my health and get my body to a place where it can support the call in my life. And but I don't know what success looks like. But I've made some great strides toward it. And so I feel good about that as a focus. It doesn't feel like a New Year's resolution. It feels more like a I want to be alive next year kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that's success. But I don't feel like I won't be alive. So I don't feel like I'll fail. I'm going to stop talking now
And
and go back to smiling.
that's in a quick comment. I won't do this on everybody, but what I love about that is that when you're hearing God say that, to me, that's the ultimate. That's that Matthew 6:33. You're feeling called towards that. The definition of success and how you get there is a process. And so I bless you, Kate, for just hearing and obeying and then letting the process. And I think we'll hear this from Jack too. Somebody else. I see a lot of eyes going upwards saying, what am I thinking?
I have a comment about that. Um, you were talking about the process. I think that's what God is after, for us to go through a process. Um, Whatever that looks like for you. I know I'm going through a process now, but I think that's what God is after, to refine us during the process and to make us better during the process. So the process is what he's after. I think that's my point, if that makes any sense.
Total.
So
Great summary. Somebody else.
I'll just add on to what Heather is speaking of a little bit. I think for many of us, if we're honest, we have one of the words the Lord gave me for 2025 was the idea of resuscitation, and that's
Mm,
just breathing
mm,
life back into old things that were dead, things that you know of that are dead, and things that you've even forgotten that are dead. And I think for every last one of us in here, we can probably scroll back through the libraries of our lives and identify dreams and hopes and desires. Could have been as little as when we were young, or even as we grew older, that we've just kind of like, mm, distanced ourselves from. And I think one of the things to kind of tie into what Heather is talking about is just being joyful in the process of getting there and not being focused on the end goal.
mm.
One of the scriptures that I nearly that I cheer on and have difficulty living through sometimes is the idea in Psalms 4 when he talks about you've given me greater joy than when the grain and the new wine abound. And that just speaks to the idea that I'm just basking in the state of life couldn't be better than it is right now, irrespective of what it is that I'm hoping and believing God to do. So for me, that's really what victory looks like, is like knowing that I have things that I'm sowing and believing God for. And as I'm going through the process of getting there, living life like it's my best life now. So,
Amen. It's a great word. That's one of the things when I was on the phone this morning with a client that wants to hire me to do something, and I said the key metric for me in our relationship and the agreement is that if we can define joy, and then as we experience our process together, joy typically will be the awareness that God is in the middle of it. Because joy is, to me, is one of God's highest attributes for us when we're in relationship. That's awesome. Somebody else.
I'll just add on to those last two comments. I think, when I'm reflecting on it, I think probably all of us to some degree have been through some battles that have lasted far longer than we expected. And I think I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. I think that process when you're going through years and the years turn into decades, into multiple decades, and kind of that kind of refining and burning off process. At the end of that, what's actually left? So, I think all of us have probably had desires or dreams that have changed, outcomes that you say, well, maybe I didn't want that, or maybe that's not a goal. And then there are things that, despite all the kind of pummeling and fighting and knocking up against it and believing for something, and it doesn't happen, and you have setbacks and you seem to go backwards in the opposite directions. What are the things after all that time that still remain as a dream and a desire versus the stuff that's kind of burnt off and changed? And I think that's kind of where I am with a bunch of things. There are things that have changed. I'm like, well, that's okay if that doesn't happen. And there are things that still remain that after decades, it's still there. And even if you want to get rid of them, you can't throw it overboard. It comes right back on the ship again.
Good word. I'm gonna turn it because I don't want to take up all of Jack's time here. But hopefully it's been beneficial for people. That the characteristics of victory and the characteristics of goal setting and all this stuff. I think most of the people in the call are mature and understand that that timing is a huge element of our process. In other words, we don't know the exact time. We set deadlines in our businesses, or in things that are in our normal, we'll say, business life. But in God's ways, I think that's one of the most elusive part. Interpretation of a prophetic word is one of the harder ones, but then the timing is really a challenge because we don't know all the other complexities or interactions that God wants to do outside of our own character and our own development. Just like in King David's case, it's still unexplainable to me why it took almost 15 years probably for him to become king. But I think it was a lot about him, but I think there was some other dynamics in the culture that probably had to be shifted that we don't know about, we don't read in the scriptures, but he had to wait for that process to happen before he could ascend to kingship. It's just a perspective that I have, but it doesn't mean that it's biblical. I would just say that as we get ready to hear Jack, that I want you to think about some of the things God's calling you into. Again, some of the littler goals and then some of the bigger goals, and just let the Spirit speak to you, because that's part of the job today of the Spirit, I think, is going to illuminate to you some of the places you can buy into and say, okay, that's what I need to do to take another step in this process. And then there's some places you need to forgive yourself for saying, I've been pressing and pressing, God, what's holding me back? And maybe today you'll get some revelation, say, okay, I get it now. I can be more patient with myself. And that's I'll end with that. And Jack, I'll introduce you here. In First Peter, I forgot to look it up this morning, where Peter makes a comment. I think it's in chapter 4 of First Peter. He talks about his own perspective of the kingdom of God coming back. And most of the apostles, I believe, in using the word parousia, which meant was your kingdom come back now, that most of the apostles, I believe, thought that Jesus would come back during their lifetime, during their earthly years of living. Not a not the wrong thing. I think Jesus left them with that perspective. But I often think about, what happened when some of them died, and they wonder, when's the kingdom coming? Then a generation goes by, and all of a sudden, how did the church continue to hold on to this idea of Jesus coming back? I'm not trying to get into this thing of the second coming and all that too much, but to share in First Peter what Peter says, I'm hastening the day of that. I'm hastening the day of the Lord's return, but I'm patiently waiting for it. And I feel like today most of us are in that tension where we're hastening what God has called us into, but we got to be patient on a daily basis. Saying, Lord, is it okay? It's not today then, but I'm going to take another step towards that Matthew 6. I'm going to seek first the kingdom in everything that I do. So this is why I love Jack being sort of the keynote, not sort of, he is the keynote for today, but I mean, for this year. Jack and I've known each other maybe 15 years through a mutual great friend. And I've loved Jack's tenacity to stay focused on the kingdom, even with all the ups and downs. I think of the ship that goes up and down in the waves, and you wonder, when is this reality? So if you can, just sit back and absorb what Jack says here, but also be listening for the Spirit for yourself, where he's going to just do that. So this is a time of being encouraged. And Jack, thanks for taking the time to put your thoughts together for this. And I just pray the blessing of the Lord and the blessing of the Spirit to be upon us today, and no complications with the technology, in Jesus' name. Come share, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the opportunity to share. So good to see my brother Bill Pavlich and Mr. Kevin PV. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, and my wife Susan, she's on listening. So just appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, coming to you live from Temecula, California. It's still, my brain is still trying to wrap itself around the fact that I'm living in California. The day before we moved, we took our one-way flight to San Diego, October 17th. And the day before we left, I hadn't talked to brother Bill Blaine, in probably a year. And I called Bill up, and he answers the phone. California man. I said, Bill, come this time tomorrow, that is going to be a reality. And just kind of gave him a snippet, and he said, man, people need to hear your story. So I hope some of what I share is a blessing to you guys. I put together a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to share that. And just give me a thumbs up when you can see the road. All right, awesome. So it's been a long journey. And so I wanted to share some background, kind of give you the backstory of, how it, came to pass to come to California. It's been a long road. So the timeline of 44-year journey. So my first trip to California was in December of 1976. And I was born in Warner Robins, Georgia, Warner Robins Air Force Base, moved to Montgomery, Alabama when I was 3. And that was pretty much the extent of my travels. My dad was in the military, have an older brother, two older sisters. They were in Europe for a time, went to some cool places, came back to the States, 1962 when I was born. And I was born again, Warner Robins, went to Montgomery. And that was about it, aside from a trip to Colorado Springs when I was 5 to see my brother graduate from the Air Force Academy. That was a cool trip. Got a taste of out west. I really enjoyed it. But that was pretty much it. And then uh, in 1976, my brother was became stationed in Monterey. He was going to the post-naval graduate school, the language school, for 2 years. So we took a trip in December of that year. I was 14, ninth grade, and that trip changed my life. I remember still getting off the plane and just thinking, okay, you're not in Kansas anymore. Just feeling the cool breeze, seeing the hills and the trees, and it was just beautiful. And then over the next couple of days, we took a trip down California Highway 1 towards Big Sur, and it was just breathtaking, beautiful. So I, we were coming back 2 days before Christmas, and I want to say, just tear up my return ticket. I'm home, and I certainly don't want to go back to Montgomery. My brother tried to talk my dad into let me stay longer, but he, no, we need to get home. I remember taxiing down the runway, tears coming down my face because I did not want to leave. And it was the most depressing Christmas I've ever had. Um, and so after that, all I could think about was how do I get back to California? And my brother was stationed in Monterey for 2 years. We did take a couple more trips. We went back the next summer and then the summer after that. So that was a long year to wait to get back to California. Um, and when I was in high school, I started sitting off for information from colleges out west, UCLA, USC, University of Colorado. And my dad's getting the mail and he's like, UCLA, what's wrong with Auburn? I'm like, okay, well, Auburn's 45 minutes away for one, and I'd really love to go out west. Well, it didn't happen. I went to Auburn. I tell people that was more of a like an arranged marriage. Wasn't my first choice, but I went to Auburn, and then it's what I call the California drought. It would be 14 years before I returned to California. And I took a trip by myself. I had a free ticket to use. It was going to expire, and I could go anywhere in the country. And I was trying to see, where do I want to go? Do I want to go to California? Do I want to go to Utah, Montana, Colorado? I just want to go somewhere where it was sunny. But it'd been a long time since I've been to California. And I remember getting on that plane and landing in Monterey, sunny, beautiful day, and the passion and the desire rekindled instantly. And I remember driving down the coast, just that love for California reemerging. And then I got a job in home healthcare, patient care technologies in 1996, and was able to go to California. Went to Santa Monica on a trip. Then my first solo client was in Merced, which is only 2 hours from Yosemite. I remember going to Yosemite, and when I saw Yosemite Valley, that is one of three scenes in my life that literally took my breath away. It was just so beautiful. And then I met my wife, Susan, in 1996. And then we honeymooned in Monterey in 1997. Just a wonderful, wonderful trip. And then we took a pause in our careers and did a DTS, Discipleship Training School, with YWAM, Youth with a Mission, in 2000. So why is that significant? Well, that took a lot to break free from Georgia, and we launched to do this school. And I thought, we're never coming back to Georgia. We're going to go to YWAM, and God's going to launch us into our purpose and destiny from there, and we're going to be off and running. Well, that didn't happen. But YWAM was a life-changing experience. I did a school of photography in 2001. But then my wife was with Accenture at the time, got laid off after the terror attacks after 9/11, and then we came back to Atlanta, which I just didn't think was ever going to happen. but did have some other opportunities to go back to California. My dad was in the Flying Tigers in the Air Force. We went to the reunion, San Diego, 2002. I got a contract with UCLA. I do healthcare IT consulting, and I got a project with UCLA in 2012 and 2013. And I remember walking around, it was only a 4-month project, which was one of my shortest projects that I've had in 16 years. But I remember walking around the area on my lunch break, and I would just look around and saying, I'm actually working in California. I mean, it was just so exciting. And on a Sunday or Saturday before I would leave to fly back out, I'd get excited saying, I get to work in California this week. And it was just so exciting. And one thing the Lord did, I remember it was December of 2012, and there's a place in Santa Monica called the Third Street Promenade, where there's a lot of shops and restaurants and street performers. And it was around Christmas time, and I'm walking down the street, and I hear one of the street performers, and he's singing a song. I know some Sinatra songs, but I didn't ever remember hearing this song. If I had, I didn't remember it. But I'm walking along, and I hear this song. The best is yet to come, and won't it be fine? And God stopped me in my tracks and said, listen to this. This is for you. And I'm hearing the song, The Best Is Yet to Come, and it's just going into my spirit. And then over the course of that week, I heard that song 2 more times. I heard it 3 times. And one night I'm having dinner in Beverly Hills across the street from Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills on a project with UCLA, and I'm hearing the best is yet to come. I'm like, Lord, this is pretty good. If you've got something better, awesome. I'm all in. And again, that project only lasted for 4 months. Then we had a trip to the Bay Area. Susan had a couple of conferences. We were in Sunnyvale and San Francisco, which is a great time. And every trip to California, I was always kind of scouting out the land, looking at areas. But I'm thinking, how are we going to afford to live here? It's so expensive. Um, but every trip to California, it felt like I was going home. I just got excited every time we went back. And then Stanford, 2016. So it looked like we were finally going to move to California in 2016. I got a project at Stanford Children's Hospital. We sold our house. I connected to Bill Pavlich at the time, getting some coaching, and we sold the house. Um, I think, Bill, is it your sister who's a realtor? Connected to her, and things were starting to roll. But then there was delay after delay after delay with the start of that project. Then Stanford had $100 million cut across the board, and it dried up. I'm like, really? So again, that didn't happen. Our house sold in a weekend. We we got an apartment, which was just God's provision, and we thought that'd be a short time, but it turned out to be 8 more years of waiting while we're in this apartment. Now, in 2016, Bill mentioned earlier about the True Identity conferences or seminars he put on, which was just awesome. And I connected with Bill Pavlich at the time. I remember sitting next to Bill, and we had this list of key words. And so on my list was speaker, teacher, trainer, communicator, and then there's California. And Bill looks over and he says, California is one of your key words? I'm like, yeah. He's like, tell me about that. And then we just hit it off right away. And it was so cool. And then somebody encouraged me, I think it was Bill mentioned it, and our friend Ursel Charles said, you need to put together a vision board. So I did. And this was a vision board I put together in 2017. Got a couple pictures from California, a California license plate, acting, a camera, which I love acting. There's a guy on stage there. The globe, love to travel, and the rocket there that symbolizes a launch because for me it felt like getting out of Georgia was going to require an awful lot of thrust to break free of like the Earth's gravitational pull. Um, and so I felt like that just was very symbolic and prophetic to me. So that was again 2017, 2018, kept revisiting this. Um, and I would share with people along the way, gee, I think I'd really love to live in California sometime. And I would get these looks like, why in the world would you want to live there? And then they would proceed to tell me all the reasons why I don't want to live in California. And I'd listen and like, well, I guess I'm crazy, but I just would love to live there someday. Um, so our daughter Catherine, now she plays an integral part in this whole piece. She is our child of promise. Susan and I, we had years of infertility, but we had prophetic words about having children. And then in 2004, she's born Catherine Elise, and was the fulfillment of a long promise coming. She graduated in 2022, took a gap year, and we started exploring gap year programs for her. And Susan found out that YWAM in Kona actually has a school of performing arts. So Catherine enrolled and went to Kona, where Susan and I were in 2000, and got into the School of Performing Arts. So in 2000, Susan and I are in Kona. People are praying for us to have children. And then 23 years later, we're standing at the Kona campus with our daughter. And it was almost surreal. And so she takes this school. It's an amazing experience. 3 months in Kona, 5 weeks in England, 4 weeks in Seoul, Korea, back to Kona, back home to Atlanta. And so then at the end of that year, in 23, in 24, she's starting to search for colleges. Um, and so we told her, you can go anywhere in the world, literally. So she took this list, pared it down from 70 to 15 to 10, had five colleges, two in Tennessee, one in New York, two in California. Applied to one in California, Chapman didn't get in. So Susan and I had decided I'd be the one to take her to California to tour, and then Susan would take her to Tennessee and wherever. So in January of last year, I took Catherine to San Diego, and we only had one college to tour, and it was University of San Diego. And our friends before we came said, "Oh, are you going to tour University of California, San Diego, or Point Loma Nazarene?" Those weren't on our radar. So we missed a deadline for University of California, but Point Loma's deadline was the next month in February. So she applied. We went and did the tour, and that alone is a God story. How it even came to pass that we went there and toured that campus. But Catherine kept saying, "I can't get over how much this looks like the Kona campus, the YWAM campus in Kona," and it did. And she said it felt like home. So she applied. And then also on that trip, our good friends, Kenny and Rebecca PV, Kevin's brother Kenny, I reached out to them and said, "Hey, where do you guys go to church?" And he said, "We go to Jesus Culture, which is an awesome church." So we went and visited there, loved it, felt like home. Um, and so we're off and running. Now, along the process, I had a lot of concerns as we're thinking about talking about moving to California. I think, okay, where are we going to live? Um, yeah, are we going to look in San Diego? We're going to look in Oceanside, Carlsbad, Temecula. We don't really know. How can we afford it? Every time we looked at an area, it was so much more than we could afford. Um, I needed a job. And so I do healthcare IT consulting. I go from project to project. And I wrapped up with St. Jude in Memphis last June. And I needed a job. And so people who know me know I'm not a morning person, and I'm praying, Lord, it'd be great if we're going to live on the West Coast. I'd love a West Coast assignment. How are we going to move? Are we going to get a national van line? Do we get pods? What does that look like? What mover to go with? What about our cars? Are we going to drive? Are we going to ship them? We have a dog and a cat. We couldn't imagine 4 days cross country with a dog and a cat. I'm like, how do people even do that? So we decided, okay, we're going to fly, but how's that going to work? So many concerns and question marks, and how are we going to get this all done? Well, the Lord said, Jack, what are your concerns? I want you to lay them all out before me, and I'm going to take care of everyone. Psalm 138 says, one of my life verses, the Lord will accomplish what concerns me. In the NLT, the Lord will work out his plans for my life. And I just, things, I tell people all the time, a cross country move is not for the faint of heart. Um, it is so, moving in itself is so stressful. But cross country is just at a different level. It's not like you can shuttle things back and forth in your car until you get everything moved. It's like you got to get everything ready for the movers and then you're done. And it was just so stressful. But the Lord was in it all. And then in August, our daughter got accepted to Point Loma. And so she started in August. And Jesus Culture, Susan came out there. We went to visit Jesus Culture again, loved it. And Catherine wanted to be part of the process. So she flagged 50 houses literally between San Diego and LA. Um, but we kept thinking Temecula was where we were going to end up. And so um, her favorite house of these 50 was in Temecula. And so the plan was we would get our daughter set up. And then Susan and I were going to spend 2 days in Temecula. We were going to drive up, spend the night, spend 2 days touring houses, getting to lay the land, because we'd never been to Temecula. We had no idea what to expect, except we knew that it made Money Magazine's top 50 best places to live in the country. And so we planned on spending 2 days, but we had 2 hours because our daughter needed a lot of help getting set up at college. So we had 2 hours. We went up to Temecula on a Thursday afternoon and we saw one house. Um, so 2 hours in Temecula, we saw one house. We get there and this couple's leaving, and this is a rental. So we're looking to rent this house. And we get there, this super nice, gracious gentleman greets us. We're visiting with him, and we're in this amazing kitchen in this house. And he keeps looking at Susan and he said, I can't get over how much you look like a woman in my church. And I'm getting ready to walk outside to look around. And Susan said, oh, what church do you go to? Jesus Culture. He's on the prayer and ministry team. And I stopped as I'm going outside thinking, okay, is this a divine setup or what? Um, Turns out he's on the prayer ministry team. Him and his wife, they pray every day, every week for people for healing, for breakthrough. And he said, we're going to put you on our prayer list and pray for you every day. And he said, if this isn't the one, God's got something better. So Steve and Ellie, dear friends now, this house was a 5 bedroom, 3 bath, 3 car garage house. Susan would watch House Hunters, and she would see, they're looking at a little 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1 bath house, and she would say, "Honey, I just don't know if I can do this." I'm like, "I get it. I don't want you to do that either." But I'm thinking, how are we going to make this work? So we're looking at this 5 bedroom, 3 bath house, thinking, this is incredible. Here's an amazing thing. The rent dropped $1,400 in a month. It started off at one price point, dropped 500. Our daughter has it flagged. It dropped another 500. She said, it dropped $500. Can you go see the house? Can you go see the house? So um, Steve calls us 3 days later after we saw the house, and he said, you know, the couple that was leaving as you guys got there, they just applied for the house. No pressure, but if you want it, go ahead and get your application in. So the day we applied, I clicked apply. For a second, I thought I had the wrong house because it had dropped another $400 in rent. My hands started shaking at that point, thinking, God's in this. God's in this. And we filled out the application, wrote a letter, sent it in. I had two concerns. We had a dog and a cat. Wasn't concerned about the dog, was concerned about the cat. And This is end of August. I'm thinking there's no way we can get out there before mid-November, but we can't wait that long. We'll never get the house. So I said we can start paying rent in mid-October. Well, we got a call 2 days later. They said from the leasing company, they said they loved your application. They're leaning towards you guys. Just two things. One, they didn't really want a cat. Like, here we go. They said, but as long, since it's an elderly cat, we'll allow it as long as you don't replace her with another one. We're like, sold. We can do that. And then if you could start paying rent the 1st of October. We were happy to do that. We got the house. We called our daughter, and she's like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to class. Yeah, I can't talk much." I said, Catherine, guess what? She said, "We got the house." I said, "We got the house." I haven't heard her that happy in years. She was so ecstatic. So we get this house, um, and then we get back and like, okay, now the clock's ticking. And Susan said, how fast can we get out there? So we have all this stuff to pack and move. Dear friends from our church, Northlands, back in Atlanta, came to help pack. They were just a godsend. And, I'm seeing this stuff. We're selling stuff on Facebook. We're getting packed up. And I'm thinking, yeah, this might actually happen. Because Susan kept telling people over the summer, she would say, as soon as our daughter graduates, we're moving to California. And the people, they'd look at me because she'd say, it's been a lifelong dream of my husband's to live in California. And they'd say, oh, that's awesome. You must be so happy. And I'd say, yeah, because deep down, I had a hard time believing it. Susan's saying it, but it's been decades of detours and delays and disappointments. And I mean, some friends of mine, I would meet or colleagues, and they would say, "How long have you wanted to live in California?" I said, "Well, since I was in ninth grade." And they'd say, "Oh, it's never going to happen." Or they would say, "I'll believe it when I see it." And deep down, I'm thinking, "Yeah, me too. I'll believe it when we actually get there." Um, but we were making steps towards that end. We hired movers, um, and I remember the day the movers showed up. I was up till 4 a.m. trying to get stuff ready. And I'm like, we're not ready. We're not ready. Like, okay, well, we'll just have to get ready as best we can. And the day the movers, and they got there at 8 o'clock. And it was kind of like when Susan was pregnant and her water broke at 1 a.m. that morning and things, it was just like surreal. And I'm thinking, this is actually happening. Well, the morning the movers showed up, I'm thinking, this is actually happening. And so we got packed up, we got everything, shipped off, got our cars shipped off. Um, and then we took our trip. We had our pets in tow. They actually made it just fine. Also, um, I landed a West Coast project. The Lord provided a project in Bend, Oregon, early October. The timing was perfect. Wonderful people, very flexible. They knew about the move. Um, And I was talking to my first call with work. I'm talking to the team lead, and I said, "Yeah, we're moving to California. Our daughter is going to Point Loma Nazarene." She said, "Point Loma? No way! I got my MBA from Point Loma." I'm like, wow. And I said, "We're actually gonna be living in Temecula." And she said, "I got married in Temecula." I'm like, okay, this is crazy. Um, we have wonderful neighbors here in Temecula. Susan's often saying I think we've moved to Mayberry because everyone is so nice. Um, and Temecula is wine country. There are 50 wineries here, and it's just beautiful. I mean, we had no idea. And it's a land of wine. It's a land of olive oil. A good friend of ours said, "Oh, Temecula is also known for olive oil." I started thinking, wine, olive oil. And then Joel chapter 2 came to mind, one of my life verses about how the Lord's going to restore the years the locusts have eaten. It says, the threshing floors will be full of grain, and the vats will overflow with new wine and oil. And then also Deuteronomy 8 just kept bubbling up because the Lord bringing us into this land. And I just kept feeling Deuteronomy 8, where it says, for the Lord your God is bringing you into into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep streams gushing out to the valleys and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing. So here's some photos. We went to dinner for Susan's birthday in November to one of the local wineries, and it's just beautiful. It's a picture of olive tree and the vineyards, and the wine. And there's Susan in front of a vineyard. It's just beautiful. The pomegranates are huge here. There's I told Susan I'd love to get some local olive oil for Christmas, and she got me olive oil and vinegar from the Temecula Olive Oil Company. They have a tasting room where you can taste their oil, and it's just heavenly. Um, that picture in the upper left-hand corner, which is my background, that's a little park 4 minutes from home that is just beautiful. And we'll go there and walk around and pray. This is our home. We have two beautiful rose gardens. We have lemon trees, orange trees, mandarin orange, this stunning kitchen. The upper right-hand corner is a picture of our great room. What's significant about that is our house in Alpharetta was a beautiful home, but I wanted a stacked stone fireplace. And that configuration, that living room is a lot like our home in Alpharetta, but it's got a stacked stone fireplace just as I would have designed it. A former owner, they put a ton of money into this house. And Susan, I kept feeling like they didn't know it, but they were renovating the house for us. And that's a picture of some of our citrus trees. This is really cool. Our subdivision is called Paloma del Sol. And a week after we got here, Susan said, I wonder what Paloma means. And Steve and Ellie, the leasing agent, they came to our home, walked around, they helped us unpack the kitchen, and they anointed every room and prayed and blessed over every room. And we're in the kitchen, and Susan looks up Paloma, and we got chills. Paloma is a Spanish female name that means dove and comes from the Latin word palombus. The name is associated with peace, love, and spirituality. In medieval times, it was often used as a Christian name to symbolize the Holy Spirit. I'm like, come on, you've got to be kidding me. So when we landed in October, I will never hear the words welcome home without thinking about what happened. We landed October in San Diego, 300 pounds of luggage, dog and a cat. We get off the airplane in San Diego, and Susan lets our little dog out, and she's stretching. And then the pilots came over and are saying hello to us and petting the dog. And Susan said, "Yeah, we just flew one way across country. We're moving from Atlanta to California and starting our new life here." And as we were walking away, one of the pilots said, "Welcome home." And that went to the core of my being. And I thought, we're home. We're home. And then we Ubered. Our cars didn't make it when we thought, so we Ubered an hour north of Temecula, had a air mattress. We slept in our home on an air mattress, ordered Uber Eats for dinner. And then we woke up the next morning in our home, beautiful sunny day, the hills in the background, palm trees, the birds are chirping in the yard. And I looked at Susan and I said, we're home. We're home. And I just can't explain that. And there's a Hillsong song that I've recently, it's been around for a long time, but the chorus says, all the earth welcome home, and every heart your will be done. All creation welcome home. This hope is ours, your kingdom come. If you haven't heard the song, look it up. Hillsong Mountain Live. It's amazing. And I just want to wrap up to say, take the leap. I've been reminded of when I was like 6, 7 years old, taking swimming lessons at the military base in Montgomery, Alabama. It was a Olympic-sized pool, and we're splashing around in the shallow end for days. And they'd say, okay, we're going to go to the deep end and jump off the diving board. Well, we couldn't swim. but the instructors are there and treading water, and they jump, we jump, they catch us. So we'll get in line, and one kid goes, jumps, the next kid goes, jumps. I get up, I get to the end of the diving board, and I freeze. And the instructors, they're treading water saying, jump, Jack, jump, I'll catch you. And he's pleading, come on, Jack, jump. I promise I'll catch you. And I can't move. And then next thing I know, I feel these hands come up behind me, lift me up, hold me over the edge, and drop me. And the instructor catches me. We go to the edge. And what do you think happened after that? Let's do that again. So we did it again. And the Lord showed me something profound that, when we take a leap of faith into what God is calling us to do, we're paving the way for those behind us to take their leap of faith and to move into what God's calling them to do. But if we delay, there are other people that are waiting for us to take our leap so they can move into what God's called them to do. And our home group in Atlanta they prayed over us before we left and had prophetic words, which is so powerful. And one said, I believe this is a supernatural move for you guys, and God's going to just work mightily. And I don't know who it's going to impact, but I just get the sense that, it's been close to 40 years. So I'm 62. We made it here. And I believe that there are people who've had lifelong dreams and goals, and it's taking a long, long time, but it's going to free them up to take their leap and to move into what God's called them to do. And when we got here, and Susan and I prayed, and we're just thanking the Lord for all that he did, we both heard, oh, but there's more. Like, oh, wow, there's more. And that's what the Lord, I believe, has given me for this year is there's more. So thank you. And here's my wife, Susan. I want her just to pop in.
Oh, I'm up here. There I am. Hi. Hi. Sorry, I'm at work this morning. I just wanted to, just a 30-second addition is that there were some really stressful moments. Packing up all that we had to pack up in 4.5 or 5 weeks, however long it was. The Lord gave us that October 1st deadline, and the clock was ticking, and we didn't want to be paying for a house we weren't in. So he motivated us. And sometimes we would work all day till 5, and then we would pack starting at 5 p.m. until 1 or 2 in the morning. But I told Jack, you know what? If the Lord can get 1 million Israelites out of Egypt overnight and plunder the Egyptians along the way, he can get 2 Harringtons from Atlanta to California. So anyway, just wanted to say hey.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jack. We're at that time where if you need to jump off, go, but I know a number of you may have some comments or questions for Jack. So this is the time to do it.
Great story. Welcome home. Welcome to California. I live here too. I have a crazy God story about it too, but I've been here a little while longer. And my house is much tinier, but loved hearing your story. It's very encouraging. And hopefully we'll get to meet up sometime.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, Lindsay, tell me exactly where you are and how close y'all were, I think in some of the areas that Jack was mentioning.
Oh yeah. Well, right now I'm in Orange County. I'm in a city called Orange. Actually, that's where Chapman is. So which is funny because I think you said your daughter applied there. So you probably heard about the fires. Maybe actually my friends in Orange County hadn't really heard about them. But yeah, the Palisades is on fire, and then it was coming into Santa Monica. I live in Santa Monica. And so last night we weren't evacuated, but last night it was like I just was like, I think I'm just gonna go down to Orange where my friend lives because I don't want the drama of the evacuation. But I do live in Santa Monica in like 250 square feet. It's a little smaller than yours, and it is very expensive, but I love my little tiny home. It's an apartment, not a home, but I called it a tiny home. And I live right by 3rd Street Promenade, which you were talking about. So that's really fun. Yeah, it's really cute.
Awesome.
So we do have some things in common. I've been to Point Loma. I went to a conference there. what was his name? The guy who wrote, oh gosh, I forget. Anyway, he's a Christian writer, but I went to his conference there. That's a beautiful campus. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it
Cool.
is.
Somebody else comments?
Yeah,
Feedback.
Jack, just a great story. And, you started talking about California. I'm like, okay, well, maybe, I haven't been on one of these calls with Bill in quite some time. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me here for? Because there's obviously something here. So I won't be too long about this. But so I'm born and raised in New York City, and I moved to Massachusetts in the early 90s, opened my retail company, and expanded at the time to a 7-store regional chain fashion retailer. And somewhere around 2000, say 2000, let's just say 2012, 13, all of a sudden I started getting like an impression, something about California. I don't know what it was. And this impression started coming over me that, look into California, look at California. And then the oddest thing started happening, that everywhere I went in Massachusetts, cars would whiz by me with California license plates, but not just like once in a while. It started where it started every single day. Now I live on the South Shore of Massachusetts, south of Boston. I live in a semi-rural town. Our population is 10,000 people. Okay, what would you think the likelihood of seeing California plates are? And it would start getting to the point where I pull into a parking lot, California license plate. I'd drive through a snowstorm, California license plate. So I start photographing them, and I have a record, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of California license plates. And this went on for several years. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you trying to tell me? So I said, okay, we're going to get moving. And I started going to the West Coast, started looking for retail stores, 3rd Street Promenade, Santa Barbara, Westwood. And we got pretty deep into it. I had a lease pulled on a store in Santa Barbara. Things just like we would almost get there. Maybe we're going to open, didn't happen. And I started flying back and forth the East Coast, West Coast, like, every month I was going, and just didn't make sense. Fast forward a couple more years to 2017, and we're starting to have some difficulty in our business. And we had this really terrible snowstorm in New England, so bad that we had snow that went over our sliders, and our dog was outside looking down into the house, and it snapped the deck off my house completely. It was like 3, 4 feet of snow. And we're like, I think that's it. And I got into a conversation with one of my suppliers, and he said, I need somebody to look at our retail organization. Maybe you want to consider coming to work for us, at least coming on as a consultant. I said, well, I can do that. And we set up to do a consulting position in the summer of, I think, 2016 or 17. And everything came together, and just like that, the money was available. And we ended up renting a house in Studio City for the whole summer. And I moved my entire family. Now I have 4 kids, my wife and 4 kids, moved the whole family out to California for the summer. My wife took the kids' birth certificates. We thought, this is it, God's direction, we're moving to California. So the whole family went to California. I started doing consulting position for this company, but something wasn't quite right, wasn't working out. My wife and kids had the best summer. It's memorable. It was like a family vacation for them. We had a house with a swimming pool. It was great. Came to an end. We all went back to Massachusetts, and then we really started having some real difficulty in our business, closing stores, and we've been in this like financial decline now for 7 or 8 years. Really, fighting against it. And I said, Lord, I don't know what the California direction, the license plates, people's t-shirts, everything that was resonating with California, moving out there, thinking I wanted to live in Santa Barbara. I just said, I don't know what this is. And I just left it and let it die. And we've been here ever since. And it was that turning point coming back from California that, we've just had this tremendous financial difficulty and business difficulty. And I have no idea till this day what the meaning of the whole California license plate experience. And by the way, just want to say, we sent my second oldest daughter to college in California to Chapman, and she graduated about a year and a half ago from Chapman. So I don't know what it means, but interesting that I'm on the call and that's your story. Kind of my story too, but didn't either end up that way or maybe I'm still in the middle of the story somewhere. I don't know.
But I've been seeing a California license plate, Jason, in Atlanta for years. And it's like every time I'd get behind a car with the California license plate, it would be like,
That's what happened to me.
wah.
Same thing. Same thing exactly. So I don't know what it means.
Yeah. Well, Jason, appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of us are in that place. We see the signs, but when's the time? That's the challenge and difficult. Appreciate you being on the call. Anybody else got a thought or question, feedback for Jack?
If you don't mind, I'd like to.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mike.
Harrington, I couldn't be more proud of you, man. I remember the story back in, I don't remember when it was, 2009, 2010, and you just every breath were loving California and the call and retreat and the stuff that we've done. Just watching this happen and then seeing it on Facebook, it did my heart good, and it gave me courage to step into something that I'm working on as well. And I just love you, Jack. I hope you know that.
Love you too, Mike. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, I'm so glad I could get in, even though I'm looking like Sandra in California.
I appreciate, can I say something?
Come on, Larley.
Thanks. I appreciate this story too about God's timing. And, I just got married 4 years ago, and my husband has never wanted to leave home.
Hey, Larley, can you just for our sake on the other side, can you get the camera a little bit? There you go.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry. But out of the blue, this is before he got saved. He never wanted to leave home, but he went out and got a passport. And then and we got married, and when I got born again when I was in my 20s, and the very first thing that happened was God woke me up in the middle of the night and spoke out. It seemed like it was out loud, this word about my art, and that it was going to go around the world and all this stuff. And it was so crazy, outrageous to me that I kind of hid it and didn't tell anybody about it. And I moved to New York. He moved me to New York in 89. And I've had a lot of prophecies about that. And now I'm hooking up with artists that are like-minded. We feel like art is one of the ways God wants to bring his word and his glory into the world. And so we know it's not about us. It's not us being famous artists. It's about getting his word out there in this medium that reaches people that are never going to go to church or, the normal venues. And so lately what's been happening is I met one woman. I'm having a show in New York in a month or two. And this woman suggested, I've had 2 invitations to show this body of work I haven't created in Venice for the Venice Biennale. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I've always thought that I was going to be in the Venice. I mean, who am I? I'm nobody, right? And so, it was like when this woman, this new friend asked me, she said, can you be ready in a year? I not only do I not have a studio to do, I mean, we're talking 9-10 foot high, hanging like a whole group of these sculptures, right? Hanging luminous sculptures. And I know I need a studio. God's shown me that we're moving out of New York into Pennsylvania full time. And so when she said that, I thought, well, that'll take me about 5 or 7 years to make. And then I turned on the And then I heard Lance Wallno talk about acceleration. He's like, this is a period of acceleration. I'm like, really? Yeah. So I'm just believing that God is going to hook me up with this group from church, these young people, to help me do this. He's going to give me a studio. I mean, this is crazy, right? So, I mean, I have a studio now in New York City, but it's not big enough to do anything like this. And I could never afford, anyway. So that's encouraging to hear your story of how these things can take a long time. I mean, I was in my 20s and now I'm in my 70s. That's like, Lord, you're going to wait till I'm 100? It's like, you got to give us some energy and healing, right? Along the path. So he is. But it encouraged me. Thank you for your story.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
take
I just want to say really quick.
Come on, Jeff.
I'm proud of Jack, and thanks for asking me on this call today. It's so awesome to see the manifestation of God working through our lives. And right after Jack moved in, I had a quote that I ran across, and one of the influencers I follow, I said, I love the theory that if a city attracts you, it's because there's something waiting for you, and your story there has already been written. I think it's something that we don't have to try and reinvent. We hear that word a lot, reinvent. It's really something we just need to rediscover because it's already inside of us. And I like to say that, victory isn't something we get to, it's a place we come from. And if you're always coming from that place, victory is all around you. Joy is all around you. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing with Jack, working with him and then being his friend for all these years, what really encouraged me and what really motivates me and inspires me from that is his childlike faith through the whole journey. He never, ever lost it. And now he's like a little kid that's opening up his ultimate present at Christmas at 12 years old going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got this. My dad gave this to me.
Amen.
And that excites me. And I just love that. And if we maintain that as adults and we can transfer that to people around us, that's our ministry, is not to lose sight of a father that loves us and wants to give us the desires of our heart. So thank you for sharing that, Jack. It's been a great journey. I can't wait to see what's next. But
awesome. Thanks, Bill. That's awesome.
Jack, before we close out, I don't know why I feel led to do this. Well, there's two things I want to say about you. One is just the history and the story and just your living it out with us online is just so helpful. Particularly like somebody said, and you said it, they take the leap because other people are behind you that want to see the faith to do it. And this morning I was praying and I was praying over Jack Harrington, and I said, that's not his name. I said, well, Lord, what's his name? And by the way, what is your middle name? I'm just curious about
it's Eugene.
Eugene.
I was well born or born to nobility.
Amen. I felt like that your middle name needs to be highlighted. And then when you answered, when we got on the call immediately, you went into Jack as California Jack. I just think there's something powerful, and also your name Harrington means not only a farm and farmland and so forth, just like you're living out there. There's a nobility in your name as well. So just encourage you in those areas. But tell the people before we close out here. I don't know why I love this little story, but it's a profound thing of faith in the little things, because we got to take advantage of the faith that God gives us each day that builds the momentum for you to get to California. Tell us about the cat when the cat got lost. And I don't know if you can shorten it or whatever, but to me, that was a powerful time. And it sounds like
wow.
And because Catherine is a part of that and just how much kind of crystallized into that one moment.
Yeah. So this was in 2020. And during the pandemic, so Susan's family had a beach house near Destin. So we spent 2 weeks down there in May, 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, just working down there. It was awesome. But they didn't want us to bring the cat. So we had to have a cat sitter back home. And during our visit in July, the neighbor called and said that the cat didn't come home last night. Don't know. He was just distraught and panicked. It was up all night, couldn't find the cat. And the next day, we kept thinking, well, she'll probably show up on the porch. Well, she didn't. And we prayed about it, and we just felt like we need to cut the trip short and come home. So we did. And we really felt like the cat was going to be on the porch when we got home, and she wasn't. So we're walking around, calling the cat's name, didn't hear her. And then our daughter was, she's getting discouraged. And I said, honey, we're just going to pray. And she said, no, no, that does nothing. That's not how it works. And I went, whoa, okay. I said, Lord, I'm going to need you to come through here. I mean, my faith was really struggling in Susan's. I said, I'm asking you to come through, if nothing else, to build my daughter's faith. Because she needs to see you come through, because there's been so many big prayers that we haven't seen a manifestation to. So the next day, nothing. The next day, 2 days, 3 days. Finally posted on Nextdoor. Somebody said, "Oh, I saw your cat yesterday," which gave us hope that, okay, well, she didn't get eaten the first night she was away. And then there's a lot to it. What? Oh yeah. So it was day 4, and Susan and I are walking around the property, and Susan said, "Come here."
Okay, I can talk really fast. Scoot over here. Okay. So you're supposed to
Awesome.
you're supposed to go out and use things that smell like them, that smell like home, all this kind of stuff. We're walking all around this apartment complex, and I'm calling her name, and I'm calling her name, and I'm walking everywhere, and I'm shaking the cat food bowl, and I'm carrying her whoopee blanket, and all this kind of stuff. And Jack had to go back. I'm in the playground, and the Lord says to me, "Stop." I stop. And he puts a song in my head I haven't heard in probably, I don't know, 20, 30 years. It's by Simon and Garfunkel, Homeward Bound. Homeward Bound, home. And I start hearing these lyrics, Homeward Bound. If you're old enough to know the song. So anyway, the lyrics say, home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. So I took off like a shot to the other end of the apartment complex, and we've been doing this for 3-4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in, I look on the back porch, and there's my love lying, waiting silently for me on the back porch.
So I was on a work call, and people who I worked with knew the story. And then Susan jumps in, she goes, "She's back." And I said, "Oh, I got to go. The cat's back." You go, "Oh, go, 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 go." So she brings the cat in, who's kind of traumatized, being gone for 4 days. I go in Catherine's room. She's still asleep. And I put the cat on her bed, and she sits up. She sees the cat and a big smile on her face. And I said, "Honey, I guess prayer does work." So that was a huge faith builder for all of us.
Amen. Thank you, Jack. As Zoom just accelerated the celebration. I don't know if all that fireworks. I just love that story. There was something indelible. Appreciate you taking the time to share it. We're going to close out here. I'm going to stop the video. I hope, if I can find where to do that.